Coco Gauff just lost a heartbreaking Canadian Open semifinal. But here's the twist. The biggest winner from this defeat might actually be Coco herself. Yes, Elena Rybakina came from behind to defeat Gauff 5-7, 6-2, 6-2, and reach the Canadian Open final. But look beyond the scoreboard. Because the story of Coco Gauff's 2026 season isn't simply about wins and losses. It's about a bold decision she made in 2025. One that looked risky, uncomfortable, and even questionable at the time. Gauff decided to completely rethink one of the most important parts of her game, her serve. And instead of waiting for the perfect moment, she chose to make major technical changes, even when the timing was incredibly difficult. That decision came with a price. There were double faults. There were frustrating matches. There were doubts. There were moments when fans wondered whether Coco had made the right choice. But now, more than a year later, we're seeing why she was willing to take that gamble. So how did one of the most controversial decisions of Coco Gauff's career help shape the player we are watching today? And why could this Canadian Open semifinal loss actually prove that the gamble was worth it? Let's go back to where it all started. Tennis, the problem that couldn't be ignored. For Coco Gauff, serving has been one of the biggest storylines of her career. Her athleticism has always been elite. Her backhand has been one of her biggest weapons. Her defensive ability is extraordinary. And her return game can completely change matches. But the serve? That has been a different story. During parts of 2025, Gauff's serve became increasingly unpredictable. Double faults started piling up. Second serve points became difficult. And opponents began realizing that putting pressure on Coco's service games could create opportunities. The problem became particularly visible during the summer of 2025. And eventually, Gauff decided that simply trying to manage the problem wasn't enough. She needed to change it. Flushed faced the bold 2025 decision. Then came the gamble. Ahead of the 2025 US Open, Gauff made a major coaching and technical change. She brought in biomechanics expert Gavin McMillan, a coach known for helping Aryna Sabalenka improve her serve. At the same time, Gauff's coaching setup changed, with Matt Daly leaving the team shortly before the US Open. Think about the timing. This wasn't happening during a quiet part of the season. It wasn't happening during an extended off-season. It happened right before one of the biggest tournaments in tennis. For most players, completely rebuilding a major part of their technique at that moment would be an enormous risk. But Gauff wasn't interested in taking the easy route. She wanted a long-term solution. Fire why the decision was so risky. Changing a serve isn't like changing a strategy during one match. The serve is deeply connected to timing, movement, balance, rhythm, and muscle memory. When you change the mechanics, the old movement can disappear before the new movement becomes automatic. That can create an uncomfortable period. And that's exactly what Gauff experienced. The new serve wasn't instantly perfect. In fact, the early stages were difficult. But Gauff understood something important. If she waited until everything felt comfortable, she might waste valuable time. The goal wasn't to make the serve perfect overnight. The goal was to make it better for the future. And that meant accepting short-term discomfort. The 2025 US Open test. The US Open became the ultimate test of this gamble. Gauff entered the tournament under enormous pressure. She was a Grand Slam champion. She was one of the biggest stars in American tennis. And suddenly, everyone was talking about her serve. The expectations were enormous. But Gauff kept working. The new motion wasn't always smooth. There were double faults. There were moments of uncertainty. But there were also signs that the work could eventually pay off. Gauff herself explained that the issue was biomechanical rather than simply mental, and she didn't want to keep waiting to address it. That mindset is incredibly important. She wasn't saying, "I need to look perfect right now." She was essentially saying, "I need to become better in the long run." And that is the real gamble. Then came the French Open breakthrough. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Despite the uncertainty around her game, Gauff continued developing. And in 2025, she reached another Grand Slam final at Roland Garros. There, she faced Aryna Sabalenka. The match was difficult. Gauff lost the first set. But instead of collapsing, she stayed composed, fought back, and eventually won the title. That victory gave Gauff her second Grand Slam championship. And suddenly, the bigger picture became clearer. The player who had been criticized for technical problems was still finding ways to win the biggest matches. Her mentality remained one of her greatest strengths. The official Roland Garros account highlighted how Gauff maintained her composure under pressure and eventually turned the final around to claim the title. So yes, Coco Gauff lost the Canadian Open semifinal. Elena Rybakina came back from a set down and defeated her 5-7, 6-2, 6-2. But if you look at the bigger picture, this isn't simply a story about defeat. It's a story about evolution. Back in 2025, Coco Gauff made a bold decision. She chose to rebuild her serve. She brought in biomechanics expert Gavin McMillan. She accepted the possibility of short-term struggles because she believed the long-term reward could be much greater. And now, in 2026, we're watching the results of that long-term process continue to develop. The journey isn't finished. The serve isn't perfect. And Coco still has plenty to improve. But that's exactly what makes this story so exciting. The Canadian Open trophy may belong to someone else this year, but Coco Gauff's bigger gamble could still pay off for years to come. So what do you think? Was Coco Gauff right to completely rebuild her serve in 2025? And after everything we've seen since then, do you believe that decision will help her win more Grand Slam titles? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Coco Gauff news, WTA updates, match analysis, and breaking tennis stories. Coco lost the semifinal, but the bigger story may be that she is still becoming an even better player. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.